And I'm not giving up, I'm not giving up, no, not me. Even if nobody else believes, I'm not going down that easily. So don't give up on me.
Hey everyone, are you rad for Christ? You fired up for Jesus? Welcome back to a new episode of Radical Christianity, the show that highlights God in action. I am Drew, your host, and I'm feeling blessed that you joined us today. So, this episode marks the fact that Radical Christianity is a year old now. This is the first episode of our second season, and I can't express how awesome it is that you have joined us for this great adventure. We have some great plans for this upcoming year, and I hope you will continue to join us. All right, ladies and gentlemen, gather around for a tale that'll make you wonder if we're in a sitcom or a real-life comedy sketch. So apparently, some parents in the Clovis Unified School District are up in arms because the Fellowship of Christian Athletes is serving up slices of salvation with a side of pepperoni. Yeah, that's right. Free pizza is now the gateway drug to Jesus. Apparently, these Clovis parents are up in arms over a well-respected Christian club offering free pizza at a voluntary lunchtime meeting. I mean, can you imagine kids lining up for lunchtime lectures like it's the hottest ticket in town? Sorry, Billy, can't hang out today. I got a date with Destiny and a slice of margarita. But wait, it gets better. These parents are so shocked. They're like, back in my day, joining a club needed parental consent. Now it's just pepperoni persuasion and a prayer. Except this isn't joining a club, and that statement isn't even true. Parental consent isn't required for joining clubs on school campuses, and I don't know if it ever was. And speaking of prayers, guess what's coming up? Good Friday! Yeah, the day after this broadcast, we'll be commemorating the crucifixion of Jesus. I can already hear parents saying, sure, let's talk about Christianity, but please, no cross-shaped pizzas. But hey, it's not about the pizza. Easter's around the corner, and you know what that means. Egg hunts, chocolate bunnies, and trying to explain to kids that Easter is about more than just a sugar rush. Kids, remember, it's not just about finding eggs, it's about finding faith. And maybe a few hidden chocolates. Now, let's take a moment to talk about the purpose of Easter. It's not just about pastel-colored eggs, it's about celebrating the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And in the spirit of the occasion, remember the phrase, He is risen. But back to our pizza-loving parents. I can picture them now trying to negotiate with their kids. Okay, you can go to the FCA meeting, but only if they promise to serve pineapple pizza. Because, that's the real miracle. In all seriousness, folks, while we can laugh about the absurdity of pizza-powered conversions, let's remember the importance of respecting each other's beliefs and the joy of celebrating the resurrection of Jesus Christ in whatever way brings us closer to the message of love, forgiveness, and redemption. So, whether you prefer your theology with extra cheese or a side of humor, let's cherish the season of renewal and rejoice in the timeless truth that He is risen. Okay, so this Easter episode, we make a special trip to a beautiful, beautiful location that just reveals the glory of God. We go to Abundant Life Ranch and speak with Betsy Cockrell about the ranch and her faith in God and how those things work together. It's a beautiful time. I hope you will love what we put together for you. All right, folks, let's get on with it. Tell me, are you rad for Christ? You fired up for Jesus? All right. Betsy!
Hey, Drew, it's so great to have you.
This is amazing.
I know. God put it on full display for you, did He not?
This is such a beautiful view. That you told me this place was gorgeous, but
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is incredible.
Yeah.
Let's go in and get the interview,
Okay.
and then we'll look at the garden. And
That
stuff.
sounds great.
Please kind of tell us the story, how this all happened from the beginning. This is awesome.
Thanks. Yeah. So our home is on 5 acres, and let's see, it's been 15 years ago. I just felt like God said, share what you've been blessed with, which was horses and Jesus and living in the country. And so thought about it, prayed about it, but it's not going away. I'm going to approach Doug with it, and he's going to say, this isn't the season of life for that. And instead he was like, yeah, let's do something. And I was like, oh, you were supposed to be my no, and now you're my yes, so what does that mean? And so we just began to pray about it. We had a group of 7 of us. We prayed for 40 days. Wasn't thinking something large scale, just, is this the season to do something like this? And it was just amazing to watch how God took that little seed and expanded it. And as we began to pray, Doug had a vision for like a working ranch and some other location other than our little 5 acres, which 5 acres is a lot, but compared to the vision and what the process would be, we weren't able to do that at that location. And we thought, okay, we'll see what that, if or when that ever comes. And until then, we'll do it where we're at. And because clearly the confirmation during that time was yes, to do something. So the first couple of years we did overnight camps, did a couple of them throughout the summer. The first year the kids literally slept on our living room floor and began to expand. And through the years, it's been interesting to watch how God has taken it from just a couple times during the summer to now we go year round. And about 2015, the end of it, we started to say, ooh, we're starting to have more and more people through, and we need a little larger location. We need a location that can also bring in some residual income as well. And so we started looking for 20, 40 acres, what that might be, that we could put some cropland on. And because in our mind, 10 acres, we were doing it on 5, 10 would be amazing. Mm-hmm. And to be able to develop it from start to finish instead of just, it was an extension of our home and had never fully intended to have the ministry there. And so then we started the journey, we started looking, we had a time of just asking for lots of prayer and just seeing what God did through that process. And then eventually came to this place. So it's 160 acres, 60 acres of it was abandoned olive orchard. And so started walking down that path and okay, this wasn't what our expectations were. It was greater than our expectations or our hopes or what we were looking for, and began to journey down the path expecting God to shut the door. Like, okay, this won't pass or that won't pass or whatever as far as the escrow process. And again and again, the doors just flew open and the doors just flew open. And it was pretty incredible to watch. And then we began to remove trees and get the dirt ready. And as I share with people, spring or like January, February of 2020, it was finally all level and it was ready for buildings and fence and all of those things. And then the world shut down. And it was like,
yeah,
oh, okay. And then we thought at that point, gosh, are we even going to have a ministry? Is this even going to happen? As we're a donor funded organization. And so during that time, people were shifting their giving to what was needed of food banks and things like that. And so we just thought, okay, Lord, this is yours. If this is supposed to happen, it will happen. And if not, this is completely yours. And we began talking to our board. What does that look like? What's kind of like a shutdown plan? We don't really understand it. I remember at one point, Doug telling me, because at that point, he and I were both employed by the ministry for a year at that point. And he said, I'm going to need to go start looking for work again. And I said, okay. And so he started talking about different jobs, and one of the organizations we work with It's young girls that have never had a healthy father figure. And because he was helping in program and helping in their sessions, when we sat down for lunch and Bible study time, so often the conversations began to turn to him almost as a father figure. You know, I know you have 3 girls, Doug. If your girls were doing this, and the girls were asking him, you know, what would you say? What would you do? What would you have it look like? And to watch them experience that and grow. And I just remember at one point just sobbing and saying, Lord, why? What does this look like? Why did you bring us to here to shut it down? I don't understand. I don't understand what this looks like. And not for me and not for us. We're going to be taken care of. But for the impact and the change for these young girls, what does that look like and why? And now on the other side of it, you know, that's the hard part of storms, right? On the other side of it are the rainbows and the promises that you see. But when you're in it, it's dark and it's gloomy and it's cloudy and you're just going, God, I don't get it. I don't understand it. And now on this side of it, I can see how God provided Doug the opportunity for a different job that allows him to still be a part of program and help here and do things. And so it looks different than we thought it was going to look. But it's amazing to see not only did God provide for us and continue to keep the ministry going, but then like every piece of this property has been developed since fall of 2020.
Yeah,
And
which is amazing.
Incredible. We just had a prayer night recently. And people came and they were like, oh my goodness, it's been like 6 months since we've been here and there's new things. And so it's just been incredible to watch how God has brought piece after piece after piece. And it's just come in waves and stages of exactly what we need when we need it. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, so I think that it's kind of amazing that this land had an olive orchard on it.
Yeah.
Because an olive, you know, I mean, olive branch is very symbolic,
Yeah.
you know, and olive trees is very, you know, I just think that's extremely amazing. And you still have an olive orchard going over there. You said you leased that orchard out, which is, you know, that's amazing. And but so how overgrown was it when you came in? I mean, was it just...
So if I remember correctly, it had been 12 years since it had been tended to. And the olive trees were, you know, God's significant in numbers. He's significant in details, right? And so I want to say whenever we purchased the property, it had been abandoned for 12 years and the trees were 40 at the time. And so, the trees are like 44, I don't know, I've lost track of time.
12 and 40, those are really God
right,
numbers.
right, aren't they? And so what was incredible is that they were still alive and green and growing, even though they hadn't been tended to and nourished. And so it's such a tangible metaphor of what did it look like probably for that Garden of Gethsemane where Jesus went and prayed. Then to watch the tenacity and the fortitude of an olive tree and how they have such a long lifespan. And it's been incredibly neat to see the connections and to watch. I think that's something that this property does is it brings scripture to life. Like when we prune the trees or prune the vines, you know, it's one thing to read John 15 and hear that the Lord prunes things and what does that mean? But when you're in there and you're tangibly pruning things, it's a whole different experience. And to watch either our kiddos or our adults go through that process, it was really neat. One of our groups who came, it was time to prune the vines and we were pruning them, and their leader read through John 15 as they were sitting there and pruning it, and just to make those things come to life, whether it's the olives or the vines or creation around us. It really is. It's just, it amazes us how God again and again brings scripture to life through this place.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, you look around and this place is just absolutely gorgeous. From, you know, especially, I mean, we did pick a strategically good time. Of
Yes.
course, God blessed us with some weather. There's a storm
Yes.
coming this weekend.
Right.
But I mean, it's super green right now. There's wildflowers. I love. I mean, green and granite. You know what I mean? That's one of my favorites. It's one of the things I love about California is you got green and granite. In the hills like crazy here in the valley. It just seems like it's really amazing that that like this place was. It looks like it was set aside for your guys' mission. And so, okay, so we've talked about the place. So really, what is it that you do here? What is the core mission? What is the demographic? You know what I mean? What is it that you guys do here?
Well, I said that's really hard to encapsulate. I think the easiest thing, which is always unfortunate that you can't really capture it on camera, but I say we get front row seats to watch what God does. What does that mean? Well, when you use a horse and we work on relational health, whether that's between people, whether that's between yourself, whether that's between you and God, when you begin to work with a horse, whatever is inside of you begins to come out. And so there's things, we focus on communication, trust, and respect as we work with the horse, because that's super significant for the horse to have the best relationship with the human. While that's significant and that's what our focus is, lots of other pieces start to come out of a person. Recently, one of the gals that we worked with, she was an adult woman and she had a ton of fear. And she just said, I just feel like I can't move forward in program. I keep getting stuck with these fears and processing through it. And I happened to glance over at her and she was getting ready to pick her horse's feet. So she was getting ready to pick the hooves. And she is like, I can see her shaking. And so we began to talk. And one of the things that we talk about is the knowledge is the beginning of the end of fear. And so I said, okay, are you afraid? I wanted her to be able to process what was going on. And she said, yeah, I'm really scared. I'm like, great. Well, that gives us a great starting point. If you say you're not afraid, well, then we can't really go somewhere, right? You have to acknowledge it. And so she acknowledged it. And I said, okay, what part of it are you afraid of? And she's like, I'm afraid he's going to kick me. Because, you're kind of in a vulnerable position there. I said, well, they can't kick you whenever they're standing on 3 feet. And so she was like, oh. And just to watch her with that little piece of knowledge, I stood there with her, I helped her, we walked through it. She did all 4 feet by herself. And at the end, we say that people have these inside smiles that come out, those smiles of like, I accomplished that. And I didn't think I could accomplish that. Wow, like that's amazing. And she had one of those. And just to watch her overcome. Or it was really interesting. So we have a scale, our chalkboard is the dirt. And so we use that a lot, but we have a scale with passive and aggressive. A horse is a prey animal. And so they're looking for a kind, firm leader, one that they can trust. If you're too passive, they say, well, I can't trust you because if something comes to attack me, you're not going to defend me. And if you're too aggressive, they'll say, I can't trust you because I don't know if you're going to turn on me. And so they need you to be kind and firm. And so it's us learning whether we're passive or whether we're aggressive, learning to kind of come to that middle balance and find that. And it's different for every horse, just like it's different for every person, right? But part of that kind and firm is the horse is looking for safety. And it was really fascinating. We have one of our young girls that's just come out of really extreme trauma. And you could just tell she was kind of checked out. She was going through the motions. I tell people, we can see what they're doing in program. You can go through the motions, but if you aren't engaged, then it doesn't really matter, right? You're going to get out of it however much you put into it. And so, anyways, she was kind of going through the motions, and you could tell because the horses start to do this and that, and they're looking and they're wanting to eat, that you can tell that there's something inside of the person that they aren't trusting, that they're not connected to, that they're not responding to, that they're not following. So we circled up and began to talk about it. And so I just really talked about how the horse is looking for safety, how the horse is looking for you as a leader to be trustworthy, that they can count on you to keep them safe. And it was just fascinating because I don't know exactly what that resonated with her. And I could guess, I could speculate knowing her situation and where she's come from, but I'm not going to speak on her behalf. And so from that, there was just a switch. It was like all of a sudden she led in a way. It was like, oh, I know what it's like for someone not to keep me safe. I know what it's like for my leaders to not really have something that I can trust and depend on. People that I should have been able to trust and depend on in my life weren't safe. They've harmed me. They've hurt me. And, often we want different for those that we care for. And this young girl has just always had just a fascination and been drawn to the horses ever since she's come. And she wants to kind of have a tough exterior and a chip on her shoulder. But every time she gets around the horse, she begins to soften. And so what we do here, it's kind of complicated to explain, right? You can kind of understand just from hearing those stories of yes, we focus on, what does it mean like to communicate in an effective way, in a way that it's clear and it's understood and I get my point across, or that I can be firm. A lot of times people don't understand that you can be firm in a respectful, kind way. A lot of people assume that firmness has to come with anger and belittling or degrading. And so then for them to understand like, oh, like this horse actually respects me more because I was able to self-regulate myself and talk through the horse's language of, oh, I can express that. I can express myself. I can listen to the other horse, and not just be talking. And so understanding the speaking and the listening component of communication, or the leadership, like I talked about with the young girl, or what does it mean to ask for and receive respect, and how that ties in then to trust. We talk a lot about, we kind of go through some slow progressions and then we end up in a very vulnerable, intimate setting with the horse at the end in the round pen. And talking about how we start in one place, but we end up in another place. But often as humans, we're so longing for connection and belonging and things that we jump to this vulnerable situation without kind of going through the process of evaluating whether it's, a coworker or a boss or a business partnership, or going to more vulnerable, is this my best friend, or is this someone I'm going to marry, or is this someone I'm going to sleep with outside of marriage, and am I going to put myself in those super vulnerable, intimate settings with this person without kind of evaluating who they are? And so when you walk through the horse, you begin to, okay, does this horse listen to me? How do I communicate to it? Like, what does that work? And they have to work with all the different horses so that they understand what it's like to work with different people and different situations. And then, how am I as a leader? Am I scared to lead, or am I demanding and leading? Right. And kind of come to those different places, or going through and the respect aspect of it. And what does that look like? And then understanding, we often ask this question when we come to the trust component of, and I'll ask you this question. Can you show respect to someone you don't trust?
You can, technically, if you fear them,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But usually it's not the kind of trust they want, not the kind of respect they want.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think a lot of us can give respect to someone we don't trust, like you were talking about, at some level, right? There's that hesitation. Well, yeah, I can. But can you trust someone you don't respect?
Usually it's difficult to trust somebody you don't respect. That is accurate.
And so isn't it interesting that we don't a lot of times consider that respect component as we get to know someone. And yet we'll put ourselves in very vulnerable situations with them of trust and then wonder, why did I get hurt? Why am I betrayed? Why am I taken advantage of? All of these different things. And yet if you start to look back back at it, you're like, oh, well, they never respected my no. They never listened to me. They talked over me. They did different. Do you see all those little baby steps that lead up to much more vulnerable situations in a relationship?
Right.
And so it's interesting for people to kind of begin to process. And I always share with my participants, you know, if it wasn't creepy, and it would be super creepy, so I wouldn't do this. But if they could come, if we could video them the first day that they came and video them the last day, they aren't the same people. The confidence that comes away from them. We say that there's a little bit of a ranch swagger, you know, that comes because there's something about working with a 1,000-pound animal and knowing that, wait, I can communicate to this and I can lead and I can be significant and I can have value. And to know whether that's, maybe I've been passive my whole life and now I can have a voice, or maybe that's, I've been aggressive my whole life, but I can be vulnerable. And the voice or the vulnerable come in that kind and firm place. And those are the type of things that the participant does for themselves. We can't do that for them, right? We can't do any of those pieces. So they always get to take whatever transformation happened inside of them and go out into life with that. You know, I think about one young boy, he was a foster kiddo and getting ready to be adopted as a teenager. So he had had some life transitions through life and he was getting ready to be another one. And he worked with Goose. Goose is our kind, firm leader, right? And this kid hadn't worked with horses before, and yet he just had a real natural touch. And in his exit interview, what he took away from his time was, I didn't know I was a leader, and now I've seen how I can be a leader. And I thought, wow, what life transformation can happen through the gift of a horse, right?
Yeah.
And that's what the horses do. They give a gift to the participants who come for them to see themselves reflected through a different mirror.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. So, I mean, that sounds like a pretty great thing. So, I'd love to hear, you know, a real powerful success story. Somebody who came in completely destroyed and left, you know, a leading, victorious person.
So my challenge to that question is narrowing it down. And not that it is like the magic button fix all, because there are some people that this isn't a fit for. I think probably one that's pretty special to my heart is a gal that we stay in touch with. And when she first came, she was like, I don't like being here. This is terrible. I don't do dirt. I don't do country. Like, I loved it. Every time she came, she had white tennis shoes. And I'd be like, why did you wear white tennis shoes to my place of all places? And she'd laugh. And she's like, I wash them every time we get back. And every time they came, they were white again. But yeah, when she first came, she was like, oh, I can't stand this. Like, what are we doing? And we're doing horses. And I don't like this. And yet, through her time here, she had two great takeaways. One was she kept wanting to pick Haas, and Haas would kind of like want to play with her and, you know, kind of always up in her business. And I would tell her, I'm like, why do you pick him? She's like, he's the best looking one on the ranch. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's true. But then she started, he started getting too much into her space and invading her space. And so then she started working with some of the other horses, and she went, wait, so here I have, this is like the men in my life. I get the tall, dark, handsome man that doesn't treat me well, that constantly I'm having to say, no, don't treat me like that. Or I can have this other one that maybe isn't who I would naturally be drawn to, but like working with them is amazing and spending time with them. And it was just a whole different atmosphere. And so it was interesting. We've journeyed with her for quite a few years, and just her going, okay, I'm not going to continue that cycle in my life when I'm done with program. And she hasn't continued that cycle in her life. Or whenever she was working with one of the horses. So in the round pen, you're just using your body presence to cue the horse, to get the horse to listen to you, to do what you're asking them to do. So it's an incredible experience for a person to experience that, and then to even just watch it. And so one of the horses she was working with, she was just struggling. And finally I was like, hey, maybe, are you trying to do it for him? And she was like, I said, because you kind of keep getting ahead of him and you're like trying to make it happen. And she went, oh my goodness. And like, she just stopped and paused and looked at me, and she's like, my daughter's making wrong choices for her life. She's making wrong choices like I have made in my past, and I don't want that. And so I'm trying to make it happen that she does life differently. And she goes, what I'm realizing in this moment, she goes, the Holy Spirit just spoke to me that I have to trust my daughter to God. And I have to trust that she's going to make the right choices for herself. And that this process is going to happen. I can't make it happen. And I can say today, her daughter has made the right choices. And she's watched restoration happen in her family. And she's brought her mom and her kids out, and we stay in touch, and it's always so fun. And her kids are like, oh, Mom, this is the place. And she's like, yeah, I love this place, and this place is great. Going from, ooh, I don't want to be here, I don't do dirt, I don't do country, to this process, in addition to my program that I was a part of, literally transformed my life. And I'm not the same person today. Her kiddos live with her again, and she's engaged and connected, and just, gosh, it's been quite a few years now, and just continuing to live life. And I'm super excited because I know at some stage here in the near future, she's going to have a full circle moment where she's going to be pouring back into people that she can relate to even more than she already is. Just sharing her story and her experience, and going to change lives because of it.
All right, so I would love to hear a story about somebody who found God here.
So I think one of the gals who just came recently, when she came, she had this really hard exterior, and she was just really tough. And I was sharing one of the devotional thoughts that Jill Briscoe has given through the years, and talking about Jill's journey of being agnostic and then coming to Christ, and her husband being missionaries, and just sharing for many years. And the gal went, oh, that's me. I'm agnostic. And just getting to process that and journey through it. And then to when she's done, her going, yeah, God is real, and God is changing my life. And, I don't know that I would say 100% that it was just because of here, because I feel like we walk so much tandem with other programs and partnerships. So I think that her program has a significant piece. But what I can say is, what she kept saying was, oh, I know we're talking about this at program, but when I experience it out here, either through the horses or the hike or through the garden, or she was part of the Vine group, just experiencing the tangibles of what she was learning, the head knowledge, and then seeing it happen out here is totally different. So by the end, she ended up having this smile that she couldn't contain, and just, you could see this softening of her countenance that had happened, and her just finding and experiencing Jesus. I think one of the other young men that came, it was fun. Last year we had a lot of water, as everyone did, right? But one of the boys that came, by the time he was done, he asked his leaders, he said, hey, I want to get baptized. And I know he has been a part of other programs that have definitely shared Jesus with him. But there was something about being here and being a part of this, and he saw that opportunity, and he said, no, I want to take it to the next level. And for his group to get to circle around and talk through, what does baptism mean, and what is that? And for him to get to be a part of that and to experience that just was really incredible. And so I think just getting to witness how God softens the heart, begins to, we talk about good soil and what is the soil of your heart. And I think being here, it begins to soften and prepare it for the seeds that fall, the seeds that are planted, and to hear it differently. And so it's fun to watch that process. I don't know if I could tell you specifically. No, actually, I probably could. I could probably tell you, if I think back in the archives, now that I'm just getting ready to say, I can't specifically tell you, I can think of 3 different kiddos that, the very first one that came, she came from Southern California, had never been on a horse and had never opened a Bible. And so it was fun to get to say, oh, as we talk about, this is our passage, and this is how you open a Bible, and this is what these book names mean, and this is what the big number means. That's your chapter, and the smaller number is your verse. And she came a handful of times, and by the time she was done, she had accepted Christ, and it was just really neat to. She probably holds such a sweet spot in my heart of just getting to walk her through start to finish, and knowing that there's a piece of her life that's forever changed. So yeah.
That's awesome. You're definitely doing God's work here. You know what I mean? This is definitely an amazing place. You know, you're an amazing person.
Oh.
Doug's pretty cool too.
Yeah, he has to be to put up with all of it.
But what we love to say here on Radical Christianity is you're definitely rad for Christ. You're definitely fired up for Jesus.
Yeah.
And we love to see that.
Yeah, he's the one that transforms. He's the one that does everything, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So this ranch is covered in God's stories. They're pretty incredible. This oak tree is a great example of one. As we began to look to expand, we were looking for some property. Our ministry was expanding, and I went to a place and asked for prayer. Hey, we're expanding. What does this look like? And as the gal was praying, she said, I just kept getting this image of an oak tree. Does that mean anything to you? And I thought, well, not necessarily. I mean, I love oak trees. I love that environment, but not necessarily. And gave it some more time, didn't think too much about it. We were still looking for a location and went to another place, totally separate. People aren't connected at all. And just asked for prayer for the ministry. We're growing, things are expanding. What does it look like? And those 2 ladies began to pray, and after a while, one of them stopped and said, I just keep getting this image of an oak tree in my mind. And the other lady said, oh, I do too. And so then they said, well, does this mean anything to you? And I said, yeah and no. I said yes, because interestingly enough, someone else has had that image as they prayed for our ministry, but I don't know what it means. And so I began to look up scripture. What does scripture say about oak trees? And there's a handful of them, but one of the most significant ones that stood out to me was Isaiah 61, where it says, I have come to proclaim, and I'm probably not going to paraphrase this exactly right, but I have come to proclaim liberty for the captives, to set the prisoners free, to give them a mantle of praise instead of sorrow, and give them joy instead of mourning. And I think I paraphrased that incorrectly, so that they might become oaks of righteousness. And it just so stuck at us that, wow, that's incredible. And then when we began to lay things out and to level the land, Doug's a great visionary, and he had a vision of how it was going to lay out and how everything was going to look. And we had to put stakes in the ground for the people moving the dirt. And we staked it. He's like, I think I want to change things up. And so we staked it. And then the next thing we know, we turn around and we look down the driveway, and right there's this massive oak. And it was like, oh, yeah, God's in the details. And that's oaks of righteousness. And so we love to say, as were coming in and out of the ranch area that you're thinking, yeah, God's growing oaks of righteousness.
That's awesome. So this is one of your horses here?
Yes, this is Annie.
Annie.
Yes.
So tell us about Annie.
So one of the things about Annie is she's obviously very beautiful and cute. And the gal who originally had her as a little tiny horse said, oh, you are so beautiful and you're so cute and I just want to love you and squish on you and all cute things. And she never asked her to have manners or have respect for the human. And so then in turn, she thought she could be the one in charge. And now that she's bigger, it's a little more intimidating and it's a little less productive for having a good relationship. And so one of the things for Annie is she's learned how to be respectful and not demanding and having her own way. And yet the neat thing about her is just like all of us have things we're good at and things we need to work on. And so some of the incredible things for Annie is the fact that she's independent. You can take her anywhere. You can do whatever you need and she'll work her heart out for you. And so she's a great horse. Yeah, she has some issues that she's working on, just like all of us. And yet she has some things that are incredible. And so that's one of the things that we get to share with our participants. Yes, we have things we work on, but yes, we have good things as well.
Awesome. She it was funny as she poked her head over there. She's all pet me. All right, let's go meet another horse.
All right. So this is Grace and Goose. Goose is a horse that is brown. I should say kind of more orangey. That helps clarify for people. And Goose's story is a couple of fun things. One, he does have a mustache, so it was fun whenever Top Gun was out. Put some aviators on him, and he really had the whole Goose moment going on. But for him, he also is, if I were to say, had a love language, it would be acts of service. He's like, hey, let's go, let's get the job done. I don't need all the warm fuzzies, except for when it comes to kids. When there's kids around, Goose is like in their lap and just loves them. It's so fun to watch. Also, the thing about Goose is he's what we call a kind, firm leader. You know, some people walk into a room and they want to be like, oh, excuse me, I want everyone to know that I'm the leader, I'm the one that's in charge, I'm the one that's doing things. Or sometimes you have a leader that they walk in the room and they're humble and yet they have a presence and a strength about them. They rise to the top, but they make everyone else feel a part of it. And there isn't a dominance. And that's what I would say about Goose and his leadership. Grace is our only rescue horse. The people who had her said that she was worthless. And Doug was looking for a horse for himself. So someone dropped Grace off for us. And when he looked at her, he knew he couldn't compete on her. But he really felt like God said, she's perfect for your program. And we didn't know what that meant. So we spent some time rehabbing her. And she's now a redemption story. You know, you need a team of people around you to bring out your best. And she's went and done some high dollar competitions and had a lot of fun. The vet and the chiropractor both cleared her before she went and did any of those things. And the thing that they said about her was, wow, we just didn't think that she would be able to do that whenever she first arrived. And so it's been fun watching, knowing that just because someone or something said you didn't have a purpose or a plan, watching it come full circle into a redemption story of she's perfect for our program. And so many people experience different pieces of themselves because of working with her and spending time with her.
They're beautiful horses.
Yes, they're very majestic. So this is Penny and Sugar. Penny is a horse, I would say, if I were to be equivalent to human terms, she has a PhD in horse knowledge. And she is always looking to see, do you understand what I understand? And she's gracious about it, but if you don't understand, then she's going to be the one that takes over and takes charge and is definitely the leader. If you know what you're doing and what you're saying, she's an incredibly gifted horse. Sugar over here, the brown and white one, we say she's super sweet and a little spicy. She's spicy in the fact that she's not going to hide it if it's a good day or a bad day. Sometimes people say it's just a typical woman, but but she's not going to hide it. She's going to let you know. She also doesn't want to be disrespected. If you treat her like she doesn't know what she's talking about, and she does, she's going to let you know. Also, one of the things that's interesting about her is she's been there, she's done that, she's done a lot of things, and yet every once in a while her fear overcomes her. And so if the writer can support her, she's like, oh, that's right, I've got it. If the writer can't support her, then she starts to panic. Her fear escalates. And I say it's just like us. All of us have things that we're afraid of in life or concerns us. And we need a team of people around us that can either say one of three things. One, yeah, it's scary, but you've got this. And people that believe in us and want to bring out the best in us. The other one is, yeah, it's scary, you're right, and you should get out of that situation. Or third, you don't even know it's scary. And yet that's a dangerous situation for you and you need to remove yourself. And so we need that team of people around us, just like the horses need a team around them, to help us navigate life and life skills.
Yeah, I love her braid on her tail. I can relate. I can relate.
Rusty is our ranch introvert. One of the things about Rusty is he likes to tuck his feelings inside as an introvert, and if you know him, you know, yeah, he's having a great day or he's not having a great day by his little subtle changes. But if you don't know him, then it seems like something very small and insignificant he makes a big deal about. And so often people can relate to, oh yeah, I tend to not say anything, and then something small comes along, and that's whenever it finally comes out. The dark horse out there, the bay horse, his name is Manny. He's a former racehorse. He was not ours during his time of racing, but he won $500,000 in his career. I think the great thing about Manny is he's kind of that come from behind kid. He loved to start at the back of the pack and ended up placing in almost all of his races. And so we talk about how just because it doesn't look like you're achieving where people should expect you to, doesn't mean you have to stay there. You can still prove people wrong and achieve greatness even if you didn't start off where people expected you to start off. Coco's a very fun story here at the ranch because he's one of our social butterflies. He'll lick you like a dog just to say I love you for no other reason. He's also probably hoping that you have a treat for him. He's always wanting the human to bring him a treat. One of the other things about Coco and kind of his growth story is when he first came to the ranch, he was kind of rude and disrespectful. It was, what did he want? How did he want it? When did he want it? It was kind of his agenda. And so we had to have conversations about, no, it kind of goes both ways. In any relationship, there's listening and talking and give and take and understanding and kind of coming together. So it's always interesting how different people relate to the horses differently, right? My favorite is one of our team leaders asked one of the young boys, why did you pick Coco? And he said, because Coco was a punk and Coco's not a punk. And I'm a punk and I'm trying to learn not to be a punk. And it was really neat just to hear him say that, and then for him to work with Coco on the other side of it and then realize, oh wait, this has actually worked out great. And just seeing what the other side of a relationship can be like whenever we work through our challenges, and for him to realize, hey, I'm glad that Coco wasn't a punk anymore and that it can be fun and exciting on the other side, and just to watch him connect and understand and relate.
That's awesome. Yeah, so this container house style of stuff is really cute.
It is
It's
super
really
cute.
And I noticed the container bathrooms.
Right.
That's super awesome.
Right? Now, what you don't understand is up until recently, we had a porta potty.
Okay.
And so last year, when we first started, I told our team, I said, hey, every time you go to the restroom, let's pray that we can get a donation that we can get flushing toilets. And so I think that the prayers definitely worked, and they were so excited whenever we came back and told them just an incredible God story of, hey, we now have the funds to get flushing toilets. And so to say that there was a cheer that went up is an understatement of the year.
The thought of porta potty prayer.
Right.
You're sitting there praying.
Right? Porta potty prayer. Yes. I like the phrase.
This garden is beautiful.
Yeah, this is our winter garden. So we're getting ready to transition it over to spring. It's amazing the lessons that come out of, like, kind of like we've talked about. But then also, not only that, but just people getting to work shoulder to shoulder and getting to know each other differently and experiencing that. And then not only that, but we cook a lot of meals that come out of our garden with our participants. And so they get to experience like, gosh, like this time of year, like I pulled a potato out of the ground and I'm going to cook it, and how it just tastes so incredibly great and flavorful, and or make salsa and make their own kind of salsa and all the experiments that get to go with it. So
they
it's
get
fun.
to understand what it means to actually have organic fruit.
Yes, absolutely.
Now this is the arena.
Yes.
Now I know that you guys are praying now about getting a cover.
Yeah,
for that.
I don't have a cute catchphrase like porta potty prayer, but we want a metal building prayer. This is kind of our next expansion piece of needing to have some type of covering, some type of metal building that we can get under shade, out of the elements, or even, sometimes during the winter, we have to do a complete shift because there's water or there's too much mud or whatever. So out of all of the elements, but especially the heat, that we have so much heat here in the Central Valley, and our team struggles with the heat, so keeping them healthy. But not only that, but a lot of our participants, or many of our participants, are on medications that don't do well with the extreme heat, the temperatures, and the sunshine. So now my saying is every time you experience sun, say a prayer. So we should have lots of prayers going up for that one.
Right. No, our viewers, remember to pray. Remember
Yes,
to pray.
yes, please.
Whenever
please.
it gets hot this summer.
The power
say a
of prayer is amazing.
So I see a lot of little tracks. That obviously there's a vehicle that drives through there. What kind of things go on in the arena?
So in the arena, we start, depends on the group, but we start, what you see out there are a lot of obstacles. And so they start to learn, kind of like us, is it's one thing to just walk down the path of life, but then when challenges and obstacles come into place, sometimes things start to be exposed and they start to come to the surface. And so those obstacles are kind of there twofold. One is to expose, like, are you really leading, or is the horse just kind of going through the motions? And are you prepared? It teaches us to be proactive versus reactive, and to have a plan, and plans change, right? But if we don't have a goal, if we don't have something, then we get nowhere. Or like the young boys who were today getting prepared to ride. Not all of our participants ride, but these boys have been coming for quite a while. And so they were practicing that. And where your eyes go is where the rest of your body goes. And so Doug was talking with the boys, like, make sure you're looking up and you're looking out. And one of the boys kept wanting to look down, and every time he looked down, you could just see his body tip. And I think it's just a great metaphor for us. One of the metaphors for us that we can use is, where are we focused? What's our vision on? Because that's where we're going to go. And so if our focus is up and out, our focus is on the Lord, we're going to go that direction. But if our focus is down in the moment, we're not going to make the progress and know where we need to go.
That's awesome. This is so cool. Thank you for sharing this with us.
Absolutely.
This is great. And where do people reach out if they want to send money or be involved?
Right. So they can contact us through our website. Our website's Abundant Life Ranch, CA for California.com. So AbundantLiferanchCA.com. And they can reach out and contact us, and we would love to hear from them, whether it's volunteers or connections in some ways, or if they want to continue to do what God is doing here, we'd be so grateful for it.
Awesome. We're definitely going to spread the word. So I noticed the cross on the top of the hill there.
Yeah. It's a great reminder of where's our focus. We were talking about our focus as riders or working with our horses, and it's beautiful to stand in this location and then to look up and just to be reminded of looking at our focus of Christ and what he's done for us, and grateful for the work that he has done and that he's risen, and that's what sets us apart, right?
Yeah, that's very appropriate considering this is our Easter episode.
Yeah.
This is our 1 year. This is a beautiful place to celebrate our beginning of a whole new season. Easter, spring, it's all a beautiful thing. So glad we could share it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today for Radical Christianity. This is our Easter episode. It's super important. Easter is like the Super Bowl for Christians. It is the day that we commemorate when our Savior rose from the dead. And it is important to realize that Jesus Christ did rise from the dead. On Good Friday, which is going to be tomorrow from when this is after this broadcast, and he was crucified. And he was crucified for all of our sins, and he would have gone to the cross if it was even just one of us. It's important to remember that. And then after 3 days, on the third day, he rose from the dead. That's why we celebrate Sunday, we go to church, and that's why the Sabbath shifted from Saturday to Sunday, because Jesus rose from the dead on the Sunday. And I just want everyone to know that it is important, if you are not celebrating Easter, if you're not pushing Easter as your faith-based holiday. I know some Christians out there are into the Easter bunny and gifts for their kids, but if you're missing the point, telling your kids why we celebrate Easter, you're doing them a grave injustice. Easter is one of the most important days of the year. It is something that we should all pay attention to because it is revolutionary for our society. If Jesus had not gone to the cross and had not risen from the dead and had not proven that he was the Son of God, our society as we understand it would be nothing like we know today. And I can go into that rabbit hole for a long ways, and maybe someday we will. We can't do it right now. But I would like to talk to that person who's watching right now, who is feeling Jesus knock on their heart. He's like, I need this Jesus thing. I need to figure out how to do this in my life. It is so easy. All you got to do is talk to Jesus and tell him to come into your heart. You can say something real simple like, Jesus, I need you. I'm not doing it right on my own. Come into my life and change me. Turn me into the person that you've designed me to be. Walk with me. Hold me. Be there for me when it's tough times. Give me the love that only you can possibly give. These are things that you can say. There's a million ways to approach it. Speak from your heart. And if you believe in your heart that Jesus was risen from the dead and that he's the Son of God, and if you say with your mouth that he is Lord, you are saved. It is simple as that. So have him in your heart. It will be the best decision you've ever made in your entire life. I have met nobody who regretted that decision ever. So if you do make that decision while watching this show or a rerun of this show, I would love it if you would go to our website, radforchrist.com. That's RAD, the number 4, Christ.com. And there's a little Got Saved form on there. If you fill that form out, I can send you a Bible and a little gift to show you that we want to welcome you and celebrate you joining the family of God. Also on that website, there is a Ask a Question form for those of you who are curious about this show or about something from the Bible, maybe something you heard at church. Please feel free to ask us, and we will do our best to answer your questions. Also, if you have a prayer request, we would love to be able to pray for you. Please submit your prayer requests so that we can sit around and pray for the things that you need. I just want you to understand that we are here for you. We are here to serve. And this is the most important part. That is, Jesus Christ loves you. And so do I. Thank you for watching Radical Christianity. We will see you next week.